years. Whereas if you're the military family, it's been 12 years of deployment after deployment after deployment after deployment. The 10-year anniversary of the invasion of Iraq having happened this past week, I noticed one of the stats that got sent around, and I was like, use this as your benchmark statistic, was that there was something like 2.6 million US deployments to Iraq over the course of the Iraq War. 2.6 million deployments. And there were 1.1 million service members who served. So you do the math. You talk to veterans, you talk to, particularly like special skills operators who've been called on to deploy time and time again since 9/11. And they've had a harrowing 12 years. And we have, despite founders wanting us to be a deliberately peaceable nation, we have fought our share of wars as a country. We fought a lot of wars. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, 1812, the Spanish-American War, Bosnia, Grenada, Panama, Gulf War I. We've been in a lot of wars as a country. And it's therefore a big deal for a country as big as ours, with as many wars under our belt as we have under our belt, to be fighting our longest war ever. It's got a lot of competition. But right now, we are fighting our longest war ever. We're still in it right now. And for 8.5 years of that longest war, we were simultaneously in another war as well that was also one of the longest wars in our history. And less than 1% of our population took care of both of those for us at the same time. All we got tax cuts. Because it's all free. I mean, the tax cut thing makes me crazy. So, whatever you think about fiscal policy broadly, it's the timing of the Bush tax cuts that makes me crazy. Because, George W. Bush was sworn in January of 2001, and the first round of Bush tax cuts was that summer, right? It was like June or July? It was June. So June 2001, we get this huge, massive tax cut. And then 3 months later, September 11th happens, and we invade Afghanistan within weeks. Remember the national debate about whether or not we should maybe hold off on the tax cuts? Give those back, maybe? Never occurred to the political class that now that this major thing had changed in our world and in our fortunes and in our prospects for how we were going to be spending the next who knows how long, we never talked about giving those tax cuts back. And in fact, less than 2 years after we invaded Afghanistan, we decided to start another simultaneous large land war. And a few weeks after we invaded Iraq, so now we've got 2 major wars going on. A few weeks after we invaded Iraq, second round of Bush tax cuts. Normal countries do not do this. But that sense that there are no consequences at home for a war being fought abroad has perverted the relationship between us and the people who do the fighting. And our relationship now with the Americans who have done the fighting there, I talk to Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, particularly people who have served a lot, people who've done a lot of deployments. And one thing that you hear frequently is that the thing they dislike and worry about the most is pity. They don't want pity and they don't want fear. Do not be afraid of me and do not feel sorry for me. But pity and fear are very closely related because they come from the same place. They come from a place of alienation. You are not like me. I do not identify with you. We are not people who have lived the same lives. I can't put myself in your shoes. Therefore, I feel sorry for you or I fear you. It's both. In both cases, it's a form of objectification that's born from alienation. Actually, I have one more quote that I just want to read from the book. I was talking with Paul Reichoff about that, my friend Paul, who's the founder of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans. Talking back in 2011, and he said to me, what it says in the book is this: the country learned to be untroubled by the fact that we had troops at war. Troops coming home from those wars learned to look out for themselves. And what Paul told me in 2011 is this: it's like AIDS was 30 years ago. It's a huge crisis for us, but no one else in the country thinks they are us. Nobody thinks they are us. Our lives have been very different for more than a decade now, so the alienation is understandable. And if you think about it over time, especially when you think about people who've done multiple deployments or who've been in for the whole post-9/11 couple of wars, their sacrifice accumulates, right? I mean, you make a deployment, and then you make a second deployment, and then you make a third deployment, and then you make a fourth deployment. And the fourth deployment, at that point, the accumulated sacrifice and suffering of you and your family, what you were being called upon to do, it's more than the marginal cost of maybe the second one, right? I mean, as time has gone on, we have asked more and more and more and more and more of this static 1% of our population. But as time has gone on, our notice of what they are doing has diminished. So we pay the least attention when they are making the greatest sacrifices. And that's a recipe for alienation. And, you know, the thing about the way that alienation manifests is important. I think it's worth it's worth paying attention to how we show it. There was a 2-minute ad in the Super Bowl this year. I can't imagine what it costs for a 2-minute ad in the Super Bowl. Isn't it like a gazillion a second, right? But it was a 2-minute Super Bowl ad. It was voiced by Oprah. And it was an ad for Jeep, but also for the USO. And the voiceover from Oprah was like, you have been cried over. You have been prayed for. You have been missed. And we're seeing members of the military coming home to their families. This year at the Rose Bowl parade, they staged a homecoming of a soldier from Afghanistan on a moving float in the parade. It was awkward. My dad is an Air Force veteran, and if you are lucky enough to be a veteran or be related to a veteran, one of the concrete benefits you get from that is that you can have USAA insurance. I was supposed to be guilty, like, do I really deserve this good grade on my insurance? I mean, it was pretty much out by the time I was born. But at USAA, I love USAA, it's great insurance. Right now, in their ads, they are faking soldier homecomings in their ads. They have actors portraying soldiers coming home from war to their actor children who are happy to see them. I mean, if you get tired of doing whatever your happy place thing is on the internet, like if you get tired of watching hedgehogs eat carrots, one of the things that you can while away the hours online is at the Welcome Home blog, which bills itself as the #1 site for videos of surprise military homecoming. And even though it may sound cynical to talk about these things this way, I do not actually feel cynical about it. I do not feel cynical about the guaranteed, marketable, even monetizable emotional payoff that we civilians will now dependably demonstrate in reaction to the narrated truth, or even the spied-on truth of how much soldiers and their families have given up when we have given up nothing. I mean, those USAA ads are actors, and I cry when I see them. And I cried at the Dumb Rose Bowl thing. And I cried in the airport today when we saw the USO greeting soldiers coming home. And it's important not to do that. We cry when we see soldiers rush into the arms of their kids and their wives and their husbands and their dogs. Have you seen the one with the Great Dane? We have an emotional reaction to that is important and good. We cry when we see that because that distance that they are returning from is a distance that means something to us as Americans. We buy soldiers beers when we see them in uniform, and we applaud them on planes when the captain points them out. And Jeep decides to sell cars during the Super Bowl in partnership with the USO, and Oprah agrees to narrate it because this is potent stuff for us. And God bless us. That's good, but it means something. It means that emotional reaction we have, it's like a tuning fork. It's telling us that something doesn't feel right. So I don't, think that these changes are irreversible. It's the most important thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have written the book. It would have been too sad. I think that the changes that we went through to make war easy for us have happened over a short time. And this is not a book, and I don't have a thesis for you about the merits of any one war, but I do think that it's worth thinking about the ways that we consider war and prepare for it and relate to it as a democracy. I think we have drifted off the course that we were set from our founding, and that what we were set from our founding was the right course. And I think we should get back to it. Fighting and dying in the name of the United States of America, enduring the sacrifice that comes with going to war, is a potent thing to us on purpose, and it should be. But if all we're using it for is emotional payoff, if we feel great about the yellow ribbon, and we feel great about seeing the USO doing their work, and we feel great about watching those homecomings, and we leave that where it is, we decide that's our substitute, that which feels great to us is our substitute for actually making sure that soldiers are being treated correctly. If we want to be emotionally entertained by the belief that they're being treated correctly, while not making sure that in reality they are, then this sort of emotional thing that we've got about the way we feel about our soldiers is more emotional pornography than anything. That is legitimate patriotic discomfort, and we should learn from it. We have not spent the last 12 years at war, we sent other people to do it for us. And whether the next war is Iran or Syria or here, or so long off that we can't foresee it now, please, it should never, ever in the United States of America feel like there's a war, but it's not us. Like it's not the country going to war, and it's no big deal for us. That is toxic, and it's not the way it's supposed to be, and we need to fix it. So that's what the book is about. That's why I wrote this book instead of just talking about it on TV, because I actually felt like I needed 200 and whatever pages to say it. But I will stop talking about it right now so we can talk about anything else you guys want.